The highlights of the Half Ironman World Championship. Oh, good job, boys. And Daniela Ryf did what Daniela Ryf does. What's up, Trainiacs? Today, we're taking a little bit of a departure from your regularly scheduled vlog because yesterday and today were the Half Ironman World Championships held down in Chattanooga. Now, a couple of weeks ago, I did a preview of who I thought were gonna be the main competitors in the pro men's and the pro women's field and how tough that race course was. Like, half the swim was into the current. The bike, crazy hilly, about 1,000 feet of climbing. The run, about 300 feet of climbing, and we had a super deep field, especially with, over the last little while, all these fast Olympic distance ITU athletes getting over the Rio hurdle and now coming into Half Ironman. I was expecting an awesome race on both sides, and we had it. Now, before we get into that fun story about this morning, when Pat and I were running, it was super hot out, so we took our shirts off right away, give the people of Winnipeg a show, ran past an old grandma. As we're running past, she goes, "Oh, good job, boys." I mean, I'm flattered, thank you, ma'am, but act age appropriate. Okay, on to the highlights of the Half Ironman World Championship. Basically, what's happening right now is with all these ITU athletes coming up, graduating out of Olympic distance racing and going into longer course racing, we're seeing the speed go way up. We'll start on the men's side, and the three first athletes out of the water were all former ITU athletes. Ben Kanute got out in 24:03 with Javier Gomez 5 seconds in behind him, and Tim Don 55 seconds in behind him. Like I say, all three former ITU athletes with that greasy fast ITU speed where they had to swim so well or their race was lost if they weren't in the front pack. But on the bike, what happened is, as expected, former world champion in the Half Ironman and full Ironman distance races, Sebastian Kienle had the fastest bike split. He started out of the water 4 minutes down from that lead pack and he had to work his way back up. And because of his awesome bike legs, he was actually expected to do really well, if not win this weekend. But the issue that I feel it's going to keep fellas like Sebastian who don't have that ITU racing background and forces them to have to work really hard to catch up on the bike will end up hurting them on the run and it'll keep them from winning. So while he ended up catching basically right back up to Ben Kanute, who had a 1 minute slower bike, he was still basically neck and neck, and Ben Kanute is used to going out onto the run and having basically these 10K running races that decide the ITU races. So in the lead coming into T2, Ben Kanute from the US was in the lead with the awesome runners Javier Gomez and Tim Don actually 3 and 4 minutes back. So with his ITU experience, I was expecting Ben Kanute to actually do really well and hold off those ITU athletes, but in the end, it didn't end up being enough. Javier Gomez is the class of the field in just about every triathlon that he enters when it comes to running. And that was what happened today. He ran a 1:10 and a half marathon. If he were here racing the Manitoba Half Marathon, he would win about 9 out of 10 years. And he did this after swimming and biking to warm up for 3 hours. So in the end, Javier Gomez was the only triathlete to go under 3 hours and 50 minutes. He did that by just a few seconds. He passed Ben Kanute in the last few miles of the run and held that lead coming into the finish line. Ben Kanute was just about a minute behind him, and Tim Don ended up placing third and then forcing shoe shots down everyone's throat on the podium. Good on you, Tim. Good on you. The women's race is getting just as fast with all those ITU athletes coming in. The first women out of the water in 25:23 were Laura Brandon, Haley Chura, and Sarah True. One of my picks to do really well, Daniela Ryf, was only 1 minute and 3 seconds back. And you had this big group of women all within 1 minute of each other, so all of a sudden it became a bike and run race. And Daniela Ryf did what Daniela Ryf does, and that is smashing the field in the bike and building a huge lead. She had the fastest bike split on the day by over 5.5 minutes, and coming into T2, her next competitor wasn't even in sight. One of the more interesting things that happened throughout the entire day is the defending champion, Holly Lawrence, who I said earlier 2 weeks ago that she was questionable coming into this race because she's been battling injuries and sicknesses. When she was in second place on the bike, she pulled out at mile 22. Kind of strange that if you're able to get yourself into second place in a world championship that you drop. Very strange and very unfortunate. And then just like what happens in ITU races, once we got onto the run and out of T2, the top 4 women who finished overall ended up being the women who had the 4 fastest run splits on the day. The fastest women's half marathon was Emma Pallant, who did 1:19 and change, but it wasn't enough to even close the gap slightly on Daniela Ryf, who won by over 7 minutes on second place Emma Pallant and 8 minutes on third place Laura Phillips. I didn't see the podium, but I don't think these women drank out of their shoes. So all in all, it was an awesome day of racing. It was a brutal course, and looking back at my picks, I picked Javier Gomez to be my favorite, and I picked Heather Jackson, which was a really bad call because she didn't race and publicly announced that even before I picked her to win. But I said Daniela Ryf was probably the next best competitor. So, call Vegas, tell them you know Triathlon Taryn, and just go with whatever I say.